Elsa, yes. Well, oh, folks, welcome tonight. My name is Rick Roller. I'll be working with you tonight as per usual. With us as the owner of our school, our director of our school, and our technical director, and um, Mr. Dan Naylor is here with us as well, which is always exciting to have Dan with us. And we're going to jump right into our material tonight, and we have a number of questions we're going to go through. Please feel free to ask any questions that you like and interrupt at any time. And it doesn't have to pertain to that particular question. Sometimes a question will spark something in your mind, and oh yeah, I wanted to ask about this, and that is fine. So let's have our first question, please. Here we go. Which of the following contributes to mold growth? Ooh. Which of the following contributes to mold growth? How about a well-ventilated house? How about dry, dusty interiors? How about lead-based paint? And how about high humidity? Well, if this is hard as it's going to get, this is pretty good, because mold doesn't grow in the desert that often. It grows in high humidity or wet type environments. That's why most mold in homes is found in bathrooms and basements and things like that. So our answer is D. Now you could have eliminated A, well-ventilated home. I don't think so. I mean, that sounds like a good thing. Dry, dusty interiors, hang on to that one. Lead-based paint, what's that have to do with mold? Nothing. So you could eliminate A and C easily. So it's either dry or wet. So guys, it's going to be wet. Next question, please. If a buyer suspects that there may be radon issues, now radon is that odorless, colorless gas that exists in virtually most environments. But if there may be a radon issue in a home, they want to buy, what they do? Have the home tested. That sounds pretty good. Hire a mechanic. You know, the home may have radon. I understand you change plugs and do oil changes regularly. What do you think, guys? I don't think so. Get a home warranty. I don't know. Get private mortgage insurance. Now, out of those two, you can eliminate D and B quite easily. A private mortgage insurance, what's that have to do with radon? Hire a mechanic? Nothing. Home warranty? Maybe. But the correct answer is A, have the home tested. The test is relatively inexpensive. They have a little box. They open it up, and so it absorbs that gas if there is any, and they kind of put it in the home, and they just let it sit there for a while. Then they come back after a day or two, and they get the box, send it in, it gets analyzed, it's sent back. And it's a relatively inexpensive test. Hey, if anyone has any questions about should I do a test, should I not do a test, you know, radon is so simple and so easy. If they have any concerns about it all, they ought to do it. And I haven't had a lot of problem with it, but I did have a home I closed on about 18 months ago, and it had radon. So we had to put in a venting system to get rid of it. Next question, please. Asbestos can be contained through a process. Ventilation, now that's more for radon, isn't it? Encapsulation, dissolution, like we're going to dissolve it, or ignition. No, we're not going to burn the home down. We're not going to melt the home or scrub it down with the alcohol. It's either got to be ventilation or encapsulation. And the correct answer to this one is B, encapsulation. Some of these things you just have to know, but if you can narrow it down to a 50-50 chance on a multiple choice test where we only need 70%, you guys are going to be fine. You're going to be fine. Next question, please. Which of the following might indicate an environmental hazard on a property? Now, this didn't say residential property, it said property. So which of the following might indicate an environmental hazard? A covered wall. Covered with what? Drapes? Paneling? Sheetrock? I don't know. You know, discolored dirt around an underground tank. Ooh, now that one sounds, talking about an environmental problem like leaking storage tanks or something. A slanted driveway. Lots of people have a slanted driveway. That's not an indication of environmental hazard. If you were thinking about a driveway that is moved, maybe, I don't, you know, it's still not environmental. It might be more of an expansive soil type thing. A lack of trees. Well, you know, guys, we live in the desert. We're lucky to have as many trees as we have. So out of these guys, which one do you think? If you're thinking like I'm thinking, you're thinking a discolored dirt around an underground tank. And you would be right. Okay. CERCLA. The Superfund provides funds for the abatement of what? Abatement of what? Mosquitoes, toxic sites, wetlands, radon. Mosquitoes, toxic sites, wetlands, or radon. Well, Superfund, when you see Superfund, you should start thinking about toxic waste sites. We've had cleanup areas in Midvale. There were quite a few of them there from an old steel mill and whatnot. And you know, they're these sometimes they're called brownscape or brown areas. Park City has areas in it where they have dumped high heavy metal content from mining waste and whatnot. So it's the correct answer to this one is toxic sites. There is no Superfund for wetlands. Radon gas we beat to death already, and mosquitoes are obnoxious, but I don't know of a federal program for them, at least not on the real estate exam. So it's toxic waste sites. Okay. No. Yes. Okay. Okay, according to the Superfund amendments in the Reauthorization Act, Sarah, okay, an owner will not be liable if the contamination happened before they purchased the property. An owner will be liable for contamination only if they knew of the contamination. An owner will be liable for their own actions, but not for the actions of others on their property. Or H, an owner may be liable for contamination of their land, even if they didn't own it when the contamination occurred. What do you think, guys? What's your best guess on this one? Well, you just got to know. Oh, Mary says D, and Mary is correct. The owner may be liable, and probably will be. They're always looking for someone else to pay for everything, for contamination of their land, even if they didn't own it when the contamination occurred. And there's a number of commercial properties that I've worked with over the past that when we do them, when we sell them, you know, they do environmental surveys, and they have a phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. In phase 1, they do kind of a history exam of the property, what's been there, and they're looking for things like old gas stations where they may have had leaking tanks or that type of problem. But they don't really test the soil or anything. Phase 2, they get in, do a drill, and phase 3, they get in, do a larger dig. They do, so you know, it's much more. So they really ought to test things before they buy these lands, particularly if they know that there's a potential that somebody could have dumped something there, or there could be like a leaking oil tank from years past. You may notice that whenever a gas station goes out of business, there's been a number of them around Salt Lake recently within the last couple of years. There was a 7-Eleven, for instance, just off Bangerter, just as you get on Bangerter Highway going west, that was there about 3rd West. And when that SEV went out, they actually were required to dig up the tanks and remove them. And so a lot of these gas stations, a Maverick on Redwood Road in about 120 something south, you know, they had to pull their tanks out too when they had sold that Mavericks. Then he sold this. So there are laws that will protect, but what if those tanks had been leaking? You know, you may not know. So whenever you're buying most residential properties, you don't worry about that much, but definitely on commercial, it's something you ought to take a look at, because you're dealing with much larger sums and bigger parcels. But you know, they're always looking for someone else to pay for things. This is the problem. All right, next question, please. Okay, O is buying a home from S. S bought the home when it was first built in 1961. And while the original paint was lead-based, they had it all removed and repainted years ago. And there have been several paint jobs on the home since then. Which is true? A, S need not disclose anything about the lead-based paint since it's been removed. B, S need not disclose anything about the lead-based paint since it's been more than one paint job since then. C, S needs not disclose anything about lead base unless O inquires about it. Okay, so, and then D is S must disclose. Okay, so guys, of all these, if you have three that are, pretty much the same, which, oh, you don't have to disclose if this, or you don't have to disclose if that, or the other thing, S must disclose all information they have about lead-based paint in the home. And that is the correct answer. Even if it's been, the home's been remodeled, the problem is gone, it doesn't exist there anymore, you still have to do it. And, what's the cutoff date on lead-based paint, folks? Put it in the chat. What is it? 1970. Come on, what is it? Lead-based paint. 1978. Thank you, Mary. Wow, you're really on top of it tonight. Wonderful. You're hitting home runs. This is fun. Okay, let's go to the next one. Which, I mean, anything built before 78. If it was built in 78, you don't have to disclose. But 77 and 78, no. Others, yes. Older, yes. And they weren't really using lead-based paint in the late 70s. I mean, it doesn't matter. You have to disclose. Even if it had been and it's cleaned up, you still have to disclose. People have a right. It's kind of like, well, my roof leaked, but I had it repaired, so I didn't even disclose it. No, you have to say, well, 10 years ago we had a roof leak, so we went ahead and re-roofed that whole section of the house. You have to disclose. Oh, question? No. Okay, land that frequently floods or has vegetation and standing water may be classified as environmental hazard, riparian sector, wetland, and easement. So it's definitely not an easement. It may or may not be an environmental hazard. Riparian has something to do with water, but you don't remember what it was. But of the riparian and sea, a wetland, the correct answer, of course, is the wetland, right? Okay, questions? Who has a question? Okay, let's talk about another thing here, a latent defect. A latent defect can be seen by any reasonable walkthrough, might be discovered by a regular inspection, is illegal, can never be repaired. Okay, now out of these, what do you guys think about D, can never be repaired, a defect, even if it's latent? I don't know. If you spend enough money on something, you can probably get something fixed. We can eliminate that one. Illegal means that someone's going to come slap the cuffs on you because you've done something that's contrary to the criminal code. I don't know. That's pretty harsh. Probably can eliminate that one. Can be seen by any reasonable walkthrough or might not be discovered by a regular inspection. Okay, so this is the heart of what they're going for. It's got to be one of these two. It's got to be A or B, right? So which one do you think it is? Mary says B. And Mary, you're right on the money. Might not be discovered. Now, these are particularly important if you know about these, that you disclose these. The seller might be a relative of yours. You may have even helped them clean it up. And we've done various remodels on my home over the years, and the nephews and the sons and the daughters have come over and helped and whatnot. And we took mold out of a wall one time where we had a really large window over a tub, which was stupid. And if you showered, it would get water in the wall. Anyway, we had to take it out. We had to take the whole wall out, and we had to take the studs out. We had to sanitize and kill all the mold and replace everything. And then we even shortened that window up. We bricked it on the outside of the home, and we, sealed it up on the inside. So it's just a high, narrow window now. So that really solved the problem. But does that mean I don't have to disclose about that mold issue? Of course I have to disclose it and say that we repaired it and what we went through to repair it. But that a latent defect is something that isn't going to hit you in the face. But if you had if you did some testing, or if the the seller and the agents are being honest. If they know about it, they will let you know about it. Okay. Okay, next question, please. G is selling their property as is. They've instructed their broker not to disclose several defects in the property, and which is true. Hey, don't tell anyone about this and don't tell anyone about that. And this is why I brought up my family. What if I'm selling one of my son's home and we know that there was a problem because we fixed it, okay? And they say, well, Dad, don't tell anyone about that. Well, no, of course we're going to tell everyone about that. Okay, so they have instructed their broker not to disclose latent defect or several defects in the property, which is true. The broker must disclose all known defects. That's got to be it. B, the broker must follow G's instructions and avoid disclosure. No. Hey, I know it's not right, but I want you to lie. No, the defects need not be disclosed when the property is sold as is. Well, all our properties are pretty much sold as is now. If you read the, our contract carefully, the broker cannot take a listing on as is property. Okay, silly stuff. The correct answer, guys, is of course you have to disclose all known defects. You just can't hide it. Okay, and another one. Any questions about this one, guys? I'm pushing through these fast tonight because I want to get into some other topics. Okay. And okay, and our last question for tonight. I hope you're printing these off and making a little book out of these because it can be very helpful to you. But a stigmatized property is a property that A, has latent defects, A, has blatant defects, C, has no physical defects, but is avoided for other reasons and cannot be sold. Well, a lot of things can be sold, but you don't think so. But anyway, that's not it. So what do you think, guys? Stigmatized properties, correct answer, yes. Nikki, yes, you're right. C, no physical defects, but is avoided for other reasons. We have a law in Utah. One of the National Association of Realtors presidents was a gentleman named Alma. Guess which state he was from? Alma Manti. We all called him Al Manti. But Al was in the state legislature for many, many years here in Utah and was actually a president of the senators. Anyway, he was high up there. And he was also the president of the National Association of Realtors. Now, we've had several Utah residents that have been president of the National Association of Realtors. I mean, 3 that I know of. But anyway, it was during Al's tenure as being the head of one of the legislative branches, I think was the Senate, the state Senate. And they passed a law that said that a broker and an owner need not disclose items that stigmatize the property. And in other words, that cannot be a material fact because the law says it cannot be a material fact. And a stigmatized property might be a property where some horrible thing took place there, like a murder, or someone died in the home, or someone died in home of AIDS, or other things that had nothing to do with blatant defects or latent defects, that had everything to do with an attitude. And so we passed a law in Utah that said that the owners and realtors do not have to disclose items that could be caused by a stigmatization of a property. Now, that means that you cannot get in trouble for not disclosing it, even though what happened there may have been something that may have influenced the buyer not to close that transaction, like a haunted house. Okay. I had one of my agents years ago that sold a home up in the mouth of the canyon. And boy, that was a phenomenal time for my little firm. I had a little firm at that time as roller real estate. I only had like 10 agents, and there was one quarter when we had over 50% of every home that was over $500,000. You know, we had half of them were ours. We had some very specific marketing plans for high-end homes, and we were just killing it. This is one of those, and it was a just gorgeous, beautiful home. But the history of this home is that he had listed it from the estate of the woman that owned it. And unfortunately, she had died in the home, but it was kind of gruesome because she had passed out on the stairs or something, and she lived alone. And it was weeks went by until the neighbors started noticing that her mailbox was overflowing, and they hadn't seen her for a while. And and then they still waited a little bit of time. They'd knock on the door, but there was no answer. And they thought, well, maybe she went somewhere and it's not forwarding her mail. Anyway, eventually they called the police, and the police made entry into the home, and they found the woman and had died weeks previous, and her body was partially decomposed in the home. Pretty gruesome. Okay. So the heirs asked my agent, do we have to disclose? And of course, my agent came back to me, and I said, well, you need to explain to him what the law says, but you also need to explain to him that at our firm, we're not going to hide behind the law. So he told him that, says, yeah, I guess you're right. It's all sad, but the point is, he told the buyer, he sold it himself, to a New York buyer that came out, loved the home, it's a gorgeous home. And he told him what happened. He said, oh, that's okay. It's no big deal to us, and so they bought the home. And then about 4 years later, their assignment here in Salt Lake ended. There was some big hire mucky up in one of our big corporations here, and they were shipped out somewhere else. And they resold the home through Tim again, my agent Tim. And they said, Tim, we're selling it through you again because we remember how honest you were when you sold us the home and told us. It didn't matter to us. We loved the home, and that didn't bother us. But another buyer, may have walked. So could Tim and I, his broker, have said, no, we're not disclosing that? Yes, but would they have found out about it? What do you think the neighbors are going to say to the first week they live in the home? Hi, welcome to the neighborhood. Here's some homemade bread. Banana bread would be better, but here's some homemade banana bread, and welcome to the neighborhood. Oh man, did you know what happened in this house? I mean, if you tell someone up, that you're not going to get away with not telling them. So you say, look, we got to deal with the hand that we've been given in this poker game. And this is the hand we're working with. So we got to tell people. And someone might say, well, do you think we might lose a buyer? We may, but that's a buyer we should lose anyway. We need to sell to someone that would be comfortable being here. So I think this law is great, and I think there are times when you might want to use it, but a lot of times you might be using it unknowingly, and maybe the seller that has the home now didn't know either. I don't know, but that's the law in Utah on stigmatized properties. Okay, but if you didn't disclose it and they found out about it later, and they were the kind of people that really bothered, they're going to make it their mission in life to destroy your real estate career. I mean, they're going to be driving down the street. They're going to see your sign. They're going to pull over, go knock on the door. Do you know what this agent did to us? They sold us a house, and it was this horrible thing, and blah, 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 So it's not worth it. But on the other hand, do you have to? No. And if you don't know about it, how could you foreclosed or not disclosed? And what if the sellers knew and never told you because they knew the law? Well, then that's something else. So things to consider. Dan and I were talking, but okay, now that's that. Now, do you have any, that's the last question. Do you have any questions on any topic? Let's address them now. Go ahead and open up your mic and let's talk about it. I see all the mics are turned off. Hey, in the last couple of weeks, I've had several of you guys call me. It's been really nice. Many of you, we spent quality time on the phone. One of the students was having a lot of trouble, so I was able to meet with her in person I have access to the Regent offices, which are these little executive office spaces all over the state. And we met for a few hours and got her all straightened out. And she went in, passed the test the next day. It was perfect. Dan and I are committed to getting you through this exam. I don't care whatever it takes. There's no extra charge for this stuff. I mean, call if I have a question. Mary, did you have a question?
I do. I just wanted to know if for the national and the state, is there going to be questions that contradict each other? I know sometimes the national rules are different. So for the national exam with Utah, are there going to be questions
Okay.
that contradict each other?
The questions are not going to be mixed up. There's a portion of the exam
Right.
which is,
I know
which
they're
is
separate, but are
national,
they going to? Yeah.
but they're not going to blend them together. So if
Right.
you're on the state test, answer it with state answers, and if you're on the national test, answer it with national answers. Do you have a specific example?
I mean, there's just a couple of them, like the agency agreement must be in writing in the state of Utah, but there's implied agencies for the national.
Mhm.
What are the national
Well,
questions?
implied agency can happen in Utah as well. But the problem you're going to have, of course, is that all agency agreements in Utah must be in writing. So that's not one doesn't eliminate the other. I mean, implied agency is where you said enough. They said things like, "Oh, we'll call my agent Rick," but there's no written agreement between them and me. That's not necessarily a conflict. That one would disallow the other. I mean, agency is a very big part of the test, so it is pretty much the same in a lot of states, but then some states have particular laws. Probably one of the better examples is in Colorado or also in Florida. There are situations where you don't have to have an agency relationship with the buyer or seller. You can be a neutral party and still receive a commission. But in Utah, you must represent either a buyer or a seller. You must represent someone. But in some of the states that are even our neighbor to the east, you don't have to have an agency relationship with them. You can just be a facilitator. Okay. Great question. Thank you, Mary. Appreciate that. Anybody else have something specific they want to talk about? Okay, you guys, you have my phone number. If you don't, it's Dan will throw it up in a moment, but it's 801-556-8000. That's my personal cell phone number. I answer the phone. Call anytime. If I'm busy or can't answer, I don't answer the phone. It's just that simple. But 98% of the time I'm going to answer the phone, and we can talk through a lot of these things. Or if you need the help, I can meet you at the school. I could meet you in one of these Regency offices, in the public area there, and we can work through some of this stuff if you'd like to get that kind of help. You went to the right school. You're going to be well prepared and you're going to pass the test, even if I have to sit down with you and work with you. And some of you, English is not your first language. Some of you have other issues that, it's just difficult for you, or you have extreme test anxiety. I work with thousands of students like that, and I can get you through the exam. But it's better to call me before you take it the first time than it is to flunk and then call me, because, well, it's going to cost you another exam fee. I don't want that to happen. Okay, I also wanted to talk, because Dan and I were talking before our class tonight about succeeding in the real estate business right now. The business is different, but yet it's not different. But it is different, I mean, and what is all this double talk about? Well, it's the most severe seller's market we've ever been in. Prices are skyrocketing. People are paying over the appraised value, and working with buyers can be very difficult because you're going to be writing many offers, most of which are not going to be accepted because there's 14 other offers, or 5 other, or 3 others. So my advice to you is twofold. Number one, when you're working with buyers, work with buyers that are very, very motivated. You're not going to be able to find a home for a buyer that's going to be a steal. They just don't exist right now. There might be a particular situation where a home is trashed out and your buyer is the very competent, do it yourself, I can fix anything kind of guy, and he goes in and puts in a lot of sweat equity and work to make it a nice home again. But that's rare. Mostly, people will do a little bit of remodeling, and that's great. But what I want you to understand is that you're going to have to learn how to work with buyers in a way that will make it work for you. And what I mean by that is you're going to have to learn how to write offers that are very compelling. And there's a lot of different people that are teaching that right now. And we're doing some of that in some of our live classes. But there's a lot of YouTube videos out there, and also that might be helpful to you. But high earnest monies, and I'm talking about real high earnest monies, not 5,000. I'm talking about 15,000 earnest monies that are refundable or non-refundable immediately. If you accept this offer, $2,500 of this earnest money is non-refundable. Minimizing or entirely eliminating the contingency for appraisal might make your offer a lot stronger, because people are paying $20,000, $30,000 over the appraisal. And there's ways that you can write your offer so that it's going to beat everybody's offer. And in a competitive market, that's going to work. Asking sellers to pay concessions right now, even on an FHA, is not happening. What you can do is, if you're showing homes in a certain price range or area, you can go into the sold listings in the MLS and pull them up geographically and look them over and say, okay, in this area, what type of loans are people getting? And it says, well, in the sold, it gives you the information, what it's sold for, what kind of loan they got, and were there any seller concessions? And if you look over that, you'll find that, hey, no seller's paying concessions, even though they're getting FHA or conventional loans. They're just not paying them. In fact, they're saying, we're not, forget it. If you're not willing to pay your own loan cost, we'll sell to one of these four other offers we have. So, that's something you can do, but you're going to have to learn how to write your offers competitively. And hopefully you're going to go to work for a broker that can help you do that. But if not, there are many other places where you can go for help. But that's a skill that we didn't used to have to do. We just put a buyer in our car, and eventually we'd find something and they'd like it. We'd make an offer. There were no other offers, and we were able to negotiate that deal. But that's a skill that would be good. Also, only working with buyers that have serious money. Okay, you want to go FHA, that's fine, but what if the appraisal comes in 5,000 short? Can you bring in an additional $5,000 or $10,000 to pay that amount of money over the appraisal? So those are the kind of buyers to work with, which falls back to my number one rule about real estate. And that is, the person that controls the inventory controls the market and controls your career. You need to control the inventory. Well, how do you control the inventory? You buy it and you resell it. You become the seller and the realtor. That's one way to control it if you've got a lot of dough. It's easy to get 12 listings when you own them all. Who shall I list this with? Me. So that's but a lot of you aren't in that position. I understand. But if you can find people that are in that position and get them to work with you, where you're buying and cleaning things up and flipping and that kind of thing, that's great. Or developing new, or whatever it might be. Control the inventory, you can own it. Another way is to list it. And for most of us, that's how we get started in real estate, and that's one of the big advantages of real estate, is that you can go out and list millions of dollars worth of properties, get a listing on it, and you're assured in this market of getting a commission. And I was talking to an agent the other day. They were lamenting the fact that, she sold one of my listings. Oh, I'm so happy to get these buyers under contract. I've written, the offers on 4 different homes for them. This is the 5th home we've been trying to get. I said, oh, okay. So it's kind of frustrating. He says, yeah, it was. I've written all these offers. We couldn't get it. Finally, we found yours, and, they liked it enough that they're willing to pay more than what they thought they wanted to pay. And they did. But the point I made with her is, okay, on these other transactions, the other 4 you didn't get, and you're getting this one, but on the other 4 you didn't get, was there still a winner in every one of those 4 transactions? Well, sure. It was the listing agent. Don't you understand that if you're the listing agent, you get 5, 10 offers on a home, the seller's going to grab one of those, and you're going to work it through, and you're going to get a commission. But the other 9 agents that didn't get their offer accepted, they got nothing. They started for 0 on trying to find another house. So only work with high, well-qualified buyers that are highly motivated. Don't work with buyers that are unrealistic. They think they're going to steal a house. They're not going to steal a house right now in Utah. It'll change. The market goes up, the market goes down. It'll change again, but not right now. So focus on getting listings, because get a listing, you're going to get a commission. Does that make sense to you? Control the inventory, and then people will come to you. It makes your life a lot easier. You can leave town. Somebody else can handle your business while you're gone, or you can do it all electronically or by remote. Guys, it's a sweet for those of us that are heavy listers right now, but it's really tough for those that just want to focus only on buyers. Now, buyers are good too, but they've got to be really well qualified. The only buyers I want to work with right now are my sellers, whom I have sold their home out from under them. And I feel like I need to find them another house. So I do, but they've got to be motivated. And, most of those sellers, which are move up buyers or sometimes move down buyers, they have plenty of money to do it because the market's just highly inflated right now. So they're walking away with another 80 or 100 or $200,000 they didn't think they were going to get. And so they're willing to pay a little over the appraisal. Hope that makes sense. Now, one more thing I wanted to share with you before we end tonight is I've been thinking back about some of the outstanding agents I've worked with, and the ones that really have done well are people that know their why. Why are you doing this? Oh, well, I want to make some money. Well, it's got to be deeper than that. Why do you want to make some money? Do you want more freedom for your family? Do you have you want to get out of debt? You want to build a legacy for your family? What do you want? What is your why? What's going to get you up in the morning? Because unlike other types of activities you can be involved in to make a living, you're your own boss in real estate. Okay. No one is going to require you to be in the office at this time. You can join a team and have team meetings, of course, but still, you have to decide what is going to make you push to get that listing or to get that deal put together. You have to know your why. Years ago, I took over management of an office, had about 105 agents in it, and the broker that owned the office brought me in, introduced me to the new agents, and there was a lady there that was always in the top 5 people in the office as far as numbers and production that she was doing. She was such a sweetheart, and because she was a grandma, she was the sweetest grandma you'd ever met. And she'd been in the business about 3 years or so, and it was my privilege to work with her as her branch manager broker for about another 2.5, almost 3 years until she retired. But she knew her why. Her why was she had her children were pretty close together in age, and so her grandchildren were fairly close together in age. And she had a number of grandchildren. I forget how many. It's probably about a dozen. But the point is, she wanted her grandchildren to have any kind of education that they wanted. It didn't matter if they wanted to go to beauty college. It didn't matter if they wanted to go to university. It didn't matter what they wanted to do. She wanted to be the scholarship fund for any of her grandchildren that wanted to get a higher education or a profession. And dang it, she was there. She was the grandma scholarship fund. That was her why. That's why she would get up and be one of the top producers in the office. Now, the people who worked with her loved her. I mean, I'd get all these accolades, but she is so sweet. She is so nice. She's so thoughtful. She's so thorough. She's so wonderful. I wish she was my mom, and this kind of stuff. But the day her last grandchild graduated from college, she turned in her resignation because she didn't have to do it anymore. But she knew her why. And that's what drove her. You need to discover what your why is, because there's going to be a lot of times in this business where it's just hard. It's hard to have written, 4 offers for this person and they want to give up, but you say, no, let's go look at this in one more house. If this is really the house, we've really got to, step up. And I've learned these things about how to make our offers look better. And I'm, you're always going the extra mile. That's the type of agent that's going to make it and make it big in this market. And you're going to do the things that most agents don't do. But what makes you do those things? It's deeper. Some people are internally motivated and some people are externally motivated. Some people, they want that plastic trophy to put on the mantle, and they want everyone to know that they were one of the top producers. And, that's how they justify their existence or their self-worth, is through the accolades of others. And some people are just wired that way. They're externally motivated. And some people are internally motivated. They don't care about they don't care about the contest or being the #1 winner in the contest. And they don't really care. They're internally motivated. They just, like her, she wanted to get the money to put her grandkids through school in style. None of them had to work. All of them had, nice automobiles to drive. And every one of them graduated debt-free. At whatever it is that they wanted to do. That was her why. So do some thinking this week. And as you're studying and other things, what is your why? And when you discover what it is, write it down and then share it with someone that you trust, a close friend, a spouse, a mom, a dad, Dan, me, whoever. You don't know us that well, but if you want to share it, that's great, because then you can refine it and get it to the point where you look at it and you understand it and it's written and it becomes the basis of the things that will push you to that next level. Okay. Dan was asking, we were talking about numbers earlier. It's just what pushed me to do 54 sales, or 58 actually, 58 sales my first year in the business and 98 sales my second year in the business. What pushed me to do that level of production? And I knew my why, but my why made me very tenacious. Now, not obnoxious. There's a difference between being obnoxious and being tenacious. And I sold a house my first week, and I listed a house my first week. It was to my brother-in-law, and he had a friend who wanted to list a house. Well, thank you, Stephen. Stephen still, got into business a year after me, and he's still in the business. And anyway, my sales manager thought that was pretty cool. And so he said, I want to get to know you better. And we got in his car and drove around looking at neighborhoods and whatnot. And we just talked. And as we're looking at that, we drove by a duplex that had weeds. I mean, they were like 5 feet tall out in front of this duplex. And I thought, wow, that's weird. It's a brand new duplex. So my sales manager, used the takeaway close. He says, well, do you want to follow up on it, or do you want me to do it? I'll follow up on it. Well, obviously I'm the one that needed the business, not my sales manager. So I went back and I figured out who owned the home through the county records. And then I found out how to get a hold of him through the phone book. There's this thing we used to have called phone book. And this is back in the 70s. But anyway, I called him, and he just pretty much hung up on me. He says, well, no, I don't want to do anything with that. And then I called him back again, and I called him again. I called him again. Now, if you were obnoxious, it would be someone that you're calling about extending their car warranty when they don't even own that car anymore. And you keep calling them and calling them. Even if you say, of course, that's a robo call, but still, the point is that's being obnoxious. Tenacious is when they have a need. I knew this gentleman. It was stupid to have a beautiful asset like that and not be doing something with it. And I kept calling him, and the conversations kept getting longer. And finally, I called him again. I'd made, and I had this card, and I would write on it my call attempts, call, and I'd called it. I'd dial that number about 23 times, but I'd only talked to him about 4 times. He was always out of town, and we didn't have cell phones then. But anyway, so it was just all landlines. And so finally, he said, hey, kid, you really want to do some of this, don't you? I said, yeah, I do. Well, come on out, list it. Went out to his house. He owned a really nice house right across the street from the duplex. So he went out and bought those 2 lots, built the duplex, and then built his house across the street. And he built it, and he had it listed, and the agent didn't do a good job, and he didn't get it sold. And then the sewer backed up into it, and then he had to put a check valve and throw out carpet and sanitize and put a new sheetrock downstairs. And then it was vandalized once. Anyway, he had it under contract, and the deal fell through. So he fired all the agents and he just sat there. And every night his wife would say, honey, you really need to do something with the duplex. And he'd say, yeah, maybe tomorrow. You know, so it sat there long enough to get the weeds to 5 feet. And finally, this young rookie agent, by just being not obnoxious, but being tenacious, and he said, come out and list it. And I did. I listed it. It was a Wednesday. I put it in the newspaper. Now, we used to have these things called the newspaper and classified ads. And I put it in a classified ad in the newspaper, which came out on, I bought the whole weekend, you know, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, you know. And so the ad popped Friday, and I got a call from another agent. He says, is this John Desbobic's duplex? Sounds real familiar, small town. And I said, yeah, it is. He said, well, okay, is it on a lockbox? I said, yeah, just go over and show it anytime. Okay, kid, thanks. Then I got another call from a guy named Roger Mayland, who said, well, I'd like to take a look at that. And I said, well, great, let's meet up Saturday morning. This is Friday night, 2 calls. And so we met at the office Saturday morning. In walks Roger Mayland, really nice guy. We sat on a little round maple table in the conference room there. And I thought I should pre-qualify him. I says, well, how much money do you make and what kind of job do you have? Well, he was a high-level government official, GS 15 or something. I mean, he was making tons of money and he's tired of paying taxes. So he wanted to get some investment properties. He'd read the current Get Rich Quick book in real estate, which was how I took the $1,000 turned into $1 million in my short time, in my spare time. And that was the book back then. And so we got in his car and drove out, looked at the duplex because he had air conditioning. I only had a Volkswagen Bug, didn't have air conditioning. So anyway, went out there and he loved it. But he'd read that book, you know, and so, well, do you think he'd carry back 10% if I gave 10%? I said, yeah, sure. Went back to the office, sat around maple table, wrote up the offer. Man, am I pumped. And I start calling and John's not home. This guy was never home, especially on weekends. You know, he just went somewhere every weekend. So later that same day, Saturday, late Saturday, I get a call from the other agent who had also written an offer. And I said, wow, you know, I said, look, I'm kind of new in the business. What do you do? And he says, well, look, kid, here's what you do. You take my offer, you take your offer, you take him over to John, you show him, and he picks the one he wants. I said, oh, I can do that. So he brought the offer over. We didn't have fax machines or internet. You know, agents actually met each other and physically transferred things. And so I had the 2 offers. I kept calling all Sunday. I called, still no answer. Monday morning rolls around. I call and John's home. I said, John, I have 2 offers. Now I hadn't even had the listing a week. You know, I remember I took it the last Wednesday. Anyway, he's got excited. He said, okay, yeah, bring them all out because he had this problem and he felt the millstone starting to be lifted off his neck. So I laid him down on his desk. I went through both offers and the other one from the other agent was about $500 better. And he says, well, John, pick the one you want. He says, you know, because that's what the agent told me to do. He says, well, which one's better for you? And I said, well, John, that's irrelevant. You know, this one is the more money for you. You probably ought to pick that one. No, Roller, I want to pick the one that's best for you. I said, well, that would be this one because I'm getting both sides of the commission. He said, okay, that's the one I want. And he did it and he signed it. And I told the other agent what happened and we were never friends. But anyway, the point is, at that moment, Mr. Desbobic got really, really excited that his problem was about to end. And he physically took me by the arm, pulled me. It's a big guy, you know, he pulled me out. We're in his home office. We go down the front steps. We're going down the street. He's pulling me down the street like this. Just 2 houses, but he's banging on the door and the door opens and it's Donnie Jazwinski. This is a Monday morning. And John looks at Donnie and says, this is Roller, the greatest agent that ever walked the face of the earth, or words to that effect. And you need to use Rick on every transaction you do. And Donnie looked at John and he looked at me. He looked back at John and says, oh, yeah, oh, okay. Well, Donnie was a builder who had just fired his broker. Didn't like him, wasn't doing the job. And in the next few days, listed about 7 homes with me. And over the next few years, many, 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 many more. One day, Donnie walked in my office with another builder and I got his listings. This is my buddy. You know, he builds, I build. We don't do it together, but I wonder if you had time to do for him what you're doing for me. So now I had 2 builders. And then later I picked up a 3rd. And you control the inventory. That's how you can sell 54 homes. And that's how you can sell 98, by controlling the inventory. And the trade-ins and the move-ups and everything about that, it all works out. Now, Roger Malin, remember him? He was a buyer, you know, the little round maple table, but I still have that maple table. It's in the other room over here. I bought it from my broker. He says, I want this table. This is my lucky table. He sold it to me. So I still have it after all these years. Still go sit at it once in a while, get a little of that luck vibe. It's amazing how lucky you get the harder you work. But anyway, the point is, he says, what else you got? I said, well, there's a lot over here. Show some promise. Okay, I'll take that. What else you got? Well, there's a fourplex over here. And he bought that. And Roger Malin actually became my most loyal buyer. I mean, he'd call me, he says, Rick, there's another fourplex around the corner from the 3 you've already sold me. Do you think you'd have time to write that one up for me? Yeah, sure, Roger, no problem. Later, Roger was one of the major investors in my alternative long distance telephone company that he started in Western Colorado. And, you know, later Donnie and I were in the savings and loan office, president's office. They loved Donnie. Everybody loved Donnie, the builder. They thought he was a wonderful guy. They tolerated me, but they loved Donnie, you know, and the president of the savings and loan says, hey, you ought to keep some of these homes, you know, because we'll just take your construction loans and roll them over into permanents for you. And so since I was sitting there with Donnie says, yeah, that's a good idea. And so, you know, the next 3 or 4 duplex and 3 other homes, Donnie just rolled them over. And he said, well, we're sitting there together. We might as well do this together, Rick. And so, you know, my deal was he'd build them, I'd manage them, and we owned them. You know, and neither one of us were in them a dime. Back in those days, you could leverage the whole thing, and ended up owning some of those. I bought my first home from Donnie after being in the business 3 months. And about, you know, a couple of months later, I sold that to someone else and bought a real big one up on the hill. You know, where'd all that come from? Well, I had a why, and it was defined in writing real clearly. Otherwise, I would have given up trying to get a hold of John Desbovic. Because there was a moment there when I looked at that paper, I've been writing down all the call attempts to John Desbovic. It was 20 something. And I thought, this guy's never going to do anything. And I almost threw it away. I almost threw that paper away, the card. The little voice said, no, do one more call. Just do one more call. I knew what my why was. You got to do one more call. And I did. And that's when he said, come out and list it. So I don't know what your one more call is going to be, but I know you're going to have a situation where you want to quit on someone and say, I've written so many offers for this buyer. I've tried so many times to get this seller to list with me. And I want you to remember this little story, because that one more call made me Rookie of the Year in my board. It took me from being a broke kid with a Volkswagen Bug into living in a beautiful home on the top of the hill with all the rich people and driving at least an Oldsmobile. I mean, it was that one more call led to all those other things. And that is not, there's nothing special about me. There is not, I promise you. Because my story is going to be your story. And you talk to any experienced agent that's been in the business for a while, Nikki, Mary, Esther, who's been around for a while, and he's got the same story or similar story, where this one thing that they did led to this vein of gold that they mined for years and literally changed their life. Literally changed their life. And so when you get in that situation, whether it's a one more door knock or one more phone call or one more face-to-face meeting, one more push, one more try, one more offer, I want you to remember that story, because it's going to be your story. There is nothing that compares the opportunity you're about to get into in this current economic situation we're in. Run the math. If the typical home in Salt Lake City is selling for, you know, $425,000, or just 400 if you want to do easy math, or if you're going to sell mostly townhouses and stuff, maybe 350 or something, but 400 is a great number. 3% of 400 is $12,000. And if you get a decent commission split with your broker, guys, checks are $8,000, $9,000, $10,000 or more dollars. How many deals do you need to make $100,000? And how many contacts do you have to make to get those deals? It's all numbers. It's all a numbers game, but trouble is nobody teaches you the game. When you get ready for that, call me, I'll teach you the game. But for right now, folks, you're doing the right thing. You're going to have distractors, or you're going to have people that say, oh, well, don't do that, do this, or, you know, here's another multi-level opportunity, or here's something else you ought to look at. There is nothing like this opportunity, but you're going to have to work. And the best way to get yourself ready to do that is to know your why. I do have a website, well, a couple. One is Rick Roller, RICKROLLER.com. That's rickroller.com. You can go there and there's some videos you can watch. I even have a YouTube channel called Rick Roller Real Estate. If you put in Rick Roller Real Estate, you'll find my YouTube channel. There's a video in there on here's some things you can do while you're in real estate school and not licensed yet to get prepared to hit the bricks running. There's things that you can do right now to get ready for this business so that when you do get started, you get started quickly. Okay. Now, don't violate any license law. You can't solicit business without a license, but I'll show you how to get around that and not get around it, but I'll show you how you can do it legally and get that done. Folks, this is a tremendous opportunity. I commend you for being here. I commend you for choosing this school. Don't hesitate to call us if you need help. That's why we're here. People helped me when I got started, and I'm just returning the favor. Thanks for being with us tonight. And hey, you know what to do if you need some help. Okay. Thanks, Dan. Appreciate you being here too.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Rick. It was wonderful. Thanks, everyone. Call with any questions. Call Rick. Call our office. Happy to help you with anything. Have a great week.